Yes.
No, and it did not.
Okay, live.
Call this meeting of the Lake Placid Central School District Board of Education. Very efficient. Wonderful title. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which is.
item is the consent agenda. Recommended action: approve the following items, which are included in the consent agenda: 4A minutes, 6A small claims tax assessment, 6B athletic merger, and 6C special education. Do I have a motion?
Move it.
Thank you, Ron. And second, Colleen. Colleen, one.
Mhm.
Any discussion or removals? If not, vote.
Colleen, are you logged in?
I'm not on board docs, but go ahead. I'm on Zoom. Yes.
So 7 yes.
Great, thank you.
May I ask a question? So I
Yes, sir.
noticed the 3 tax assessment cases. Are those small claims that go through administrative? There's 3 tax assessment cases. So how do they get to your desk, David?
These, they get sent by the attorney.
Yeah, but was there a proceeding by which a determination or stipulation was entered into?
We just get a judgment from the
Oh,
court.
you get a judgment.
Yeah, we get a judgment from the
Okay,
court,
that's-
usually the attorney.
my question.
Yes,
Perfect.
we get a judgment.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, so brings us to 2A, our first public comment section. Do we have any emails
We do not.
or letters? See anyone present? And information for the public. I think that's from the previous one. It's still in there, the comment commission statements, right? So
Yes.
I don't think we had any comment last time, so nothing of note there. So that brings us into our reports. So let's start with the budget performance report. Sure, take it away, Dan.
Provided you 4 documents, really just talk about the budget performance reports. The other 3, as more for your information, is basically just a breakdown. You can look at it by account code. I did include this time around a revenue status report, just so you can kind of see that side of it. So that's, and then the budget comparison is what I've been giving you the last few times. That's the spreadsheet, the graph and all that, basically showing you more real time. That was as of yesterday. But when you look at the budget performance reports for the month of December, year to date, unfavorable by $200,000. Expenditures unfavorable by $313,000 from December to December. When you look at it year to date, revenue is slightly down, 83.8% by 8.6%. It equates to about $815,000, but expenditures year to date, even though percentage wise we have spent more, 45% as opposed to 41%, that is still trending in terms of favorable by $282,000. And when you look at the projection, this number has been increasing. Again, it's a projection based off of last year information, and it's doing just that. It's basically looking at where things fell last year and projecting based off of what's been going on this year. There's really not a lot of scientific involvement there. You'll see that right now the projection is a difference of about $533,000. And we're not typically used to seeing a deficit in that projection over the last few years. That's typically been a surplus, and when we look at these things, but I'm not too concerned by it. When you look at it this year, last year, I mean, we had a surplus of about $900,000. So if you look at it, we're trending in terms of where we're budgeting. Even though this is showing a negative, one thing is not factoring in is if we played everything out revenue wise, I would be adding $688,000 from our fund balance as revenue. It's built into the revenue source. This doesn't factor into that, so that's why saying I'm not too concerned that it's a negative at $500,000. We're spending, within our budget, because you can see the projection is it's just a little over 20 million for revenue. Well, we can easily be right about what we budgeted at 20.9 million. So when I look at it and I look at the numbers going forward, I'm not too concerned in terms of what is being projected out. Questions? If you have questions with the reports, they're coming right out of our system, just please, again, it's all about giving you guys the ability to see the various account codes and where we're spending. So it's a little deeper dive into how it looks other than just, categories. It's typically what you'll see. I think our next meeting, we'll have our first budget session. You will see what the tentative budget looks like, code by code. It is the entire, here's what our budget is based off of from code 1 to the ends. It's very similar to what you're seeing in these reports. That's great.
Great.
Thank you.
Any questions? Treasurer's report.
No real difference there. Our insured cash sweep is still pretty strong, over $17 million. We've run, if you look here, we've as I jokingly said at the very beginning, we're spending more than what we bring in because that's typical of where we are, where we get our revenue. We brought in about $329,000, but we spent about $1.5 million. When one looks at that, you go, oh my goodness, we're bringing in, but we're not a typical business in that regard. 85% of our revenue comes in by November 1st. So when you look at that, we're spending down what we've already brought in. It's not spread out. One thing I did want to point out, you'll see towards the bottom of that first column, NBT interest payments, $24,000. We can think, obviously, interest rates are going up, therefore it does benefit us in terms of generating some revenue. Last month's Treasury report, that was about $8,000. So rates are pretty strong. So in that regard for us, because we have a little over $17 million in the cash sweep, we're reaping the benefits on the other side in terms of interest.
Great.
Between that and interest from our taxes, I think we've already exceeded what was budgeted for a revenue source.
David, what is the interest rate at MBT? Offhand?
I don't, because with the cash sweep, it goes through, it could go to 50, 60 different banks across the country. So I would have to look into exactly what it is, but it's probably 3-4% at this point.
Thank you.
Question, Dennis. So I see here, there's a payment of lieu and taxes of $4,000. What property? Do you know the property that has a pilot on? I don't think there were any property.
Actually, it just came in the other day. It's, oh my goodness, I should.
It's okay. No, not that you
It
should remember
is
that.
the northern. I don't know if it's the development, the Comlinks development.
Oh, it could
It's
be.
northern something. We just got.
It was that. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And
Yeah.
and it basically said that, basically they will be paying, we get 4,000, the village will get 2,300, the town gets
That's right.
something like that, 2,400. I just got that in the mail
It's a new pilot
yesterday.
agreement. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember that. Okay. Thank you.
What's the pilot agreement?
Payment in lieu of taxes. So if you want to encourage a development and they come to negotiate a reduction in their taxes, the town can enter into an agreement where they make a payment in lieu of paying taxes. I think it's here on the Commons.
Yeah, I think so.
Ah,
Yeah, it's, the official name is Northern something. It
The
was
reason-
back in 2006.
Yeah, the reason I ask because the town has taken a position that they won't do that. People used to do it for hotels and motels and all that nonsense. So the town hasn't done it in a long time. So that's why I was wondering, if this was a holdover for another, which is.
Yeah, it was early 2000. Yeah, when this came to be.
David, didn't we have somebody else like a year or two ago? Wasn't there a second group in there? Or was it always just that one? For
It's always been, since I've been in this position, it's always been
Just
just
that one,
small,
okay.
one for $4,000. other districts, they could have multiple
Oh, sure.
of these,
Windmills.
right, it's a.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, yeah.
So in that regard, we're fortunate if we have one in $4,000.
Well, the green one had one for 30 years, 1975 for 30 years on. And so back then, there were a number of properties that had it. Those-
Questions on the treasury report?
Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you, Dan.
that brings us to the superintendent's report.
So quite a bit going on in town, and the school had a great degree of involvement in those proceedings over the last 10 days. And I think our previous meeting was 2 weeks before, so there wasn't a lot of instructional time in there. But there's still some highlights I want to share. The big highlight, when you have an opportunity, I encourage you to look at the two program booklets for the MacPack program that was coordinated by Keith Clark, staffed by 46 of our Lake Placid Central School District employees, and supported by our community school program, by the Adirondack Sports Council, by LEAF, the town, the village, Orta, and sponsored in part by Hydro-Quebec as well, one of the sponsors of the games. And just the breadth and depth of opportunities that the students were able to have over the course of the MacPack program is absolutely outstanding. So we had 180 students that had signed up, and we had ultimately, when the rubber hit the road, 160 participate. And of that 160, the drop-off rate once students attended was significantly small, which is a great indicator of their interest, engagement in the program, and of course, as well as the need for families who would be working during the games as well. So there was a real buzz when we came back to school officially and amongst the staff about just the level of cohesion that was experienced with the school and all of our regional partners, and the students really just having a top shelf opportunity to take in Lake Placid and Wilmington in a way that they may never get to again. But if we're doing our job, we are going to ensure that they will.
Mhm.
So the MacPack program was an absolute success. We're really excited about that. We had a meeting this afternoon, and at the close of that meeting, Teresa had to step out and Keith Clark had to step out because they were welcoming back our Woods program students who returned at 2 o'clock today after 4 days in the wilderness. So our first trip concluded, and I had to conclude the meeting. I wasn't able to meet them as well, but no limbs were lost, no frostbite incurred, smiles, and just resounding positivity, first to read from the students who participated in the program. So the next trip is slated for later in January, and this will be an opportunity for female students in the district to participate in their first trip. So a total of 4 occurring this year. The first for the gentlemen has taken place, and moving on now for the ladies in the district.
Question, Tim,
Yeah.
how many students are going to? the
We can
Woods
take, so each trip, we can take up to 12 students. And this last trip, we had Mr. Baker be our staff rep. We had our 2 program guides. We had 8 students signed up. And then I think through the churn of the games, we ended up with 5 for the first run. So pretty good first showing, considering when I described it to my wife, she said, I don't know how I'd feel about 4 days camping in the woods in the winter. It's a 14 to 17-year-old. So the kids are certainly brave to have done that. And I know that the board is going to have a chance to hear from this group about their takeaways. So that's pretty exciting. Prior to going on break, there was at least many exciting things took place at the elementary school, but one that I got to be present for is the school has partnered with the EdOp Fund, thanks to the leadership of Kathy Briggs and Vicky Kirshner, who are music aficionados, both in school and on the side. And they, in their partnership with EdUp, have 4 different musical offerings coming into the district. And the second one came on Friday before break, and it was the Gibson Brothers. And so the Gibson Brothers performed for our students for a little over an hour. And it was great to be present. I actually was a teacher for one of the Gibson Brothers, his kids. So it was nice to see him again after all these years in this neck of the woods. Otherwise, we continue on. Games are catching up. We're finally availing ourselves to some ice time after missing out for a better part of 2 weeks thanks to the games. We'll have access to the Civic Center in another week. They're still breaking down from the curling tournament in Saranac Lake, so our ice is being used, but sports are in full gear and people are happy to be back. And it was a nice 2-week interlude since our last meeting.
Tim, I just wanted to say something about the MACPAC program that our grandson Torrin attended, one of the older students, but it truly was a great experience for these children locally. And the other part of this, or the other side of the coin, I had 2 or 3 moms tell me how appreciative they were, especially for their little ones, that they couldn't afford daycare for the week. So this was like a wonderful option that they didn't have to worry about where their children were going for the week. And I just think that's another side of this that, kind of have to look at. But it was just a great program. Keith and all of the people behind the scenes really, we owe them a big thank you for orchestrating this. And I am just so excited that we have someone in that position.
And I also wanted to say the same thing, being far away from friends and family. I just heard wonderful things, people that I know that participated. My own daughter said that she was so impressed when she saw the kids in the MACPAC program, that they were so excited. And she works in another local school district, and said the kids in Lake Placid have unbelievable experiences. And I think being a student there in the past and now working somewhere else, she's realizing how wonderful it is. So kudos to everybody involved. And it's nice to hear that from afar, how wonderful it was. So I'm glad to hear that.
Evie also participated, and the first day was a real grump about going to school when her brother and sister did not have to go to school. Did not get a single complaint after that first day. After the first day, she was dressed, ready to go. So it was, I actually saw Keith at the closing ceremonies and thanked him profusely for the job that he and his staff did.
That was
Really
great.
great.
So many great opportunities for them.
I'd like to comment that I worked out at Overberg, and the ski team was the forerunners for many of the events. So the high school students also participated in opportunities that the Fisher Games afforded them, not being in school. So I think everybody benefited in that regard.
Yeah, our kids are very lucky, live in a great place.
Very lucky.
Tim,
The
anything else?
standing boys were flag raisers with the short track speed skating.
They should get the volunteer of the games awards.
Yeah, they were doing this, that, and the other.
I worked with them at Overberg, all 3 of them. Andrew and
Parker.
no,
Will.
the other Will, both were mascot presenters. And they got out there and did a wonderful job. And they were broadcast internationally.
Well, Will is in one of the Fishu YouTube videos, carrying buckets of water to freeze the ice. And they interviewed him. It's really cute. You can check it out.
Do you have anything else to add to your report there, Tim? Or is that
No,
pretty short? Short and
more than
sweet.
I could even imagine.
Great. Thank you very much. All right, so that brings us to information for the board. There's some stuff in executive content, both about Cutgate and the MacPack program. So please read that over, because that will kind of frame how we're going to approach all of that. So take a look at that as you do. Since it's all executive content, I won't go into it. But then the next up is minutes, which was in consent. That takes us to personnel items. Recommended action, approve the following items which are included in the personnel consent agenda. 6C, creation of a position. And
It should say 5. Sorry. It
Oh,
should
sorry,
say
5, yes.
It's my fault.
5C.
5C, creation of position. 60, long, yeah, 5. I'm just gonna read what's on there. I can't.
I know, sorry, it's my
I'm like a
fault.
newscaster. I'm just gonna read what's on the card. Until it comes through. Long-term teaching assistant appointment. Do I have a motion? Yes.
I have a question, just about the creation of the new position, which I do believe is necessary. But what happens if, and maybe I didn't see this, what happens if there is a drop in those ESL children?
I'm gonna pull that out of consent so we can talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, what? I'm sorry.
Pull that out of the consent agenda so we can
Okay.
talk.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
I think you had Joan had the first motion there. Do we have a second?
Okay. Second.
Oh, Colleen Skufka with the second.
Okay,
So we're just gonna approve 5D.
5D.
Okay. Okay. I see. Okay. Yes.
Seven, yes.
Okay, so first we'll get to 5B, teaching staff retirement. Recommended action upon the recommendation of the superintendent, accept the retirement of Brian Brandis, math teacher, middle and high school, effective June 30th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Colleen. Second,
I'll second.
Doug. And obviously, as you guys vote here, we would like to thank Mr. Brandis for an impressive 34 years at the school district. So,
Oh my goodness, we're losing another great teacher. I
yeah.
want to say that Brian taught all 5 of my children, so it's kind of like bittersweet. Like, I'm sure he's looking forward to retirement, but I'll tell you, some of these seasoned teachers, it's hard to lose them.
Harder to keep them though after retirement.
No, I know. Maybe he'll come back and sub.
That's true. Probably get them on a couple Sundays.
Colleen, how are you voting?
Yes.
He will be missed both, in the classroom and as a coach.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
For
See.
sure.
Really wanted to. We'll let you decide.
Ron,
Yes.
you have to vote.
Oh, I got blocked. I don't know what to do. Oh, there we go. Had another
I do have to
Thank
give you a little story about Brian. Brian came to the school district my junior year in high school. He and I used to come to school at 5:30 in the morning and work out. School day, so. Yeah, a lot of fond memories with Brian as a coach and
Good
as a
person.
teacher, so.
He was just a spring chicken back then. You guys still don't get together at 5 a.m. and work out?
Not AM.
He'll be retired, so you can start that tradition back up. again.
Sure.
You can.
Right on Dan's agenda.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Brian Brandis. Years of service. So that brings us to 5C, recommend action upon the recommendation of the superintendent. The Board of Education hereby creates the position of ESL teacher effective January 24th, 2023. Do I have a motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So while we're voting, I wanted to call this out because this is an expense that the district will have to carry in perpetuity. It's not something that we do lightly. And it's something that we absolutely have to do because of the changing demographics, largely due to the problem with getting workers and the declining local population. A lot of the people that are coming with students that need ESL instruction are here with working visas and here to work, which is great. And we will serve the students that we have, but that is an additional cost to the district. That is another symptom of our housing crisis that
Right.
because a lot of these larger hotels and resorts are having to go abroad to bring in workers. That is, that's not an unseen cost for the taxpayers.
So can this position be an annual position? I mean, Colleen brought up a really good point that what if we have declining numbers? That following year, maybe we only have 5 children. We have 20 now, but I mean, is this a position that we have to have in perpetuity? Why can't we have it that it's a year-to-year position? And in case we don't need the person.
I wouldn't want to do a year-to-year position because that puts whoever we hire for this in a really bad
Yeah.
spot.
Right.
Position after a year, what do we say to the taxpayers then?
I think it's the same that we do with any of our,
Okay.
Excellent points. So we don't know what the trend is going to do.
Right.
I do know that presently we are blessed to have an ESL instructor in Caroline Hamblay. But in discussions with Caroline, I know that she is on a path towards retirement, within potentially a 3-year term. So that already provides one option for us.
Okay. All
And
right.
then the other piece is if these numbers do diminish, then we have a bevy of options at our disposal. So
Okay.
if we were interested in keeping the position, then we could enter into an agreement with another regional district that has needs, but not needs so immense to require a full-time person. And that would alleviate the financial strain on our district, but maintain the position for our own flexibility. And also, we could look at a partnership with the regional BOCES so that they could provide services part-time with this individual as well.
Okay.
Our projections right now indicate that this is going to stay, that this is
Okay.
a now symptom of the identity of Lake Placid for the near term until substantial housing changes come, that you don't have local workers and you have a tourist-based economy that has the capacity to provide on-site housing for people willing to work for diminished wages. Then you have globalization en masse, and that's what we're experiencing here.
And Tim, where the hotels, where are they providing housing? Do we know that?
Over there, what the Thunderbird,
Okay,
that's
okay,
the housing. Yeah.
okay,
Other places, Dan? Yeah, Schulte's, yeah.
okay. No, I was just curious
Yeah.
where the people are.
It's saying that's what they have to do.
The
Yeah.
new one used to be the old Howard Johnson's or Quality Inn.
Down
is
below, yeah.
Right,
looking-
that's what I read something about Quality Inn, right? They are providing housing. I just read that recently. I don't know if it's for the construction workers or for the actual workers of the hotel, but I did read that this past week.
and it is something that we have to provide by law for students.
Oh, I agree.
And it's better for those students and it's better for those families as well. But the main reason I just wanted to have that discussion, that we weren't just creating,
No.
lightly. This is a necessary reaction of the district to the changing housing.
I think it's awesome that you're able to we're able to do that. And I had brought up before that a speech pathologist also can provide the service, but I never felt very confident in that area as an SLP, but in New York State, you're allowed to do that. So I'm glad that there's somebody who's specifically involved in that, so that's great.
Do we have somebody in mind yet, or do we now have to put out the position?
So we'll canvas for the position and see who we can get. I'm hopeful. This is the first step. But just to punctuate the point about efficiency, because this is such an important message for our taxpayers, is that every year we look at our enrollments and our course offerings, and we promote efficiency at all costs, and we look at attrition as a vehicle to ensure efficiency as a district, but to lessen any personal impact on our dedicated employees. And last year's representative of that, we diminished positions by 8 full-time positions last year, maintained the same number of services, and even expanded some services, one of which was an administrative position. So, I will continue to operate with efficiency in mind as the numbers change. But for now, this trend seems to be holding.
On the other side of it too, we have to look at it that it actually brings some additional diversity into our classrooms, from children, wherever they're coming from, that's a big plus too.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
We're so kind of in a little bubble here, so I think that's great.
Colleen, how do you vote?
Yes.
So
Any other
that's
comments?
7 yes.
Thank you very much, everyone. All right, so 5D was in consent, as is 6A, B, and C. Brings us to linking goals with agenda items. I think the ESL position is students first and foremost.
Fact number 1.
MacPac is also that, with a little bit of media outreach and involvement.
Yeah.
The music education coming in, musicians, another one.
Any others? Please send them to Karen at some point. Brings us to our next public comment period. Do we have any additional emails? Okay. So that brings us to the adjournment phase of the meeting. Next meeting will be February 7th at 5:30 for a budget work session. So then the real fun begins. I mean, it's not really that bad. Everybody made it sound like it was going to be this arduous process.
We've been through it before with Dana. We know what we're getting into.
That's right. Data is very organized. I can imagine if we didn't have somebody who was very organized in that position, it could be a bit of a nightmare. But
Great.
so we thank you in advance for all your work you're going to do in the next 2 weeks.
Oh, I already started.
Great. All right.
Today.
All right. And then any old agenda topics? Any new agenda topics? All right, then. Recommended action is motion to adjourn the meeting at 6:34 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dan. Second?
Yeah.
Thank you, Colleen. 1. Everybody in favor?
Yes.
There we go.
Dan 1.
Great. Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you having fun, Colleen?
Very efficient meeting.
She is.
Dan.
Yes, I am. It's very cool this winter here. It's very different than it ever has, but that's okay. Sunny days are nice. So nice to see everybody. Bye-bye. Have a good evening. Okay.